This is our second update, and welcome everybody. We're more than halfway done with 2020. It's crazy. We're still not going out without masks though. And we just had a release, NativeScript Core 6.5.9 released. So let's just go over quite a few things. I'm gonna first talk about the release and just a few things that came out in this release. First, we have bug fixes, and then we have some features. And then after that, I'm going to go through some of the things we have planned for August. And there's a lot of things. So I apologize ahead of time if I'm just going to ramble on. And then after that, I'll hand it over to some community folks for some updates as well. So bug fixes. Bindable, parent referenced expression values now load properly using an update call. Okay, so there's that. The scroll view is scroll-enabled, will apply changes while gestures is underway. So now, while somebody is actually using the scroll view and scrolling, you can now disable and enable the scroll view. Snapshots. This was a bug. It was the Android property was not defined, so now it is.
Can I interject with a question on that one?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. So I ran into that myself, and I couldn't. And I was trying to figure it out. I did some checking, and it seemed like some Googling indicated that snapshots was being dropped. So I just tried building without minus snapshot to push to the store, and it worked just fine. So I swept that one under the rug. Is that an okay solution to that?
So that's actually going to be something coming up in August, and I'm going to get to that. Nathan, did you want to add something about that?
Yeah, on the further slides here, Ken, we've got an update for the 7.0 plan, which is part of Snapshot and Code Cache. So we'll mention that in just a moment.
Yeah. Okay. That's coming up. Thanks for that question, Ken. Okay, and then text view. Only reload text if hint is showing on iOS. So that's a bug that we had. It's fixed now. Now the features. Some really cool features here. Some connectivity related features that people have been asking about. getActiveNetworkInfo. We have modern compliance on that. Dialog. Destructive style from options. You can take a look at all these bug reports, feature requests and the commits here. And the image source. This is pretty neat because now you're able to resize the image from the source directly, so you don't have to load the full scale image and display it in your image by resizing the source, and you'll be able to scale it down in code.
Thank you again, Ken, for that. We're going to get the docs updated to reflect that resize method here as well. But yeah, really nice feature. Thanks.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, very handy. And text view, allow easy subclassing on iOS. I haven't actually had a chance to check this one out yet, but that's a new feature as well. And if any elaboration on this is required, you guys can ask questions. We'll get to that as well a little bit later. So the plan for August for NativeScript 7.0 is pretty huge. So I'm going to just go through this real quick, and then we can ask any questions. 7.0 on iOS. This will be the first official release of V8 runtime. So that's really, really exciting. It's been a long time coming. And of course, Android has already been on that. Now, NativeScript /Android and /iOS, the @NativeScript, the scoping for that, they will be consistent. So Android will also be changed to that to keep that consistency going. Same thing with @NativeScript and @NativeScript hooks. And @NativeScript CLI will also be scope version. So yeah, everything is heading towards scoping, and there's another scoping item down below. I'll get to that as well a little bit later. Okay, NSConfig, and this is one that we would really like some feedback from the community about. Right now, it's nsconfig.json, so we want to be a little bit more consistent about this and call it NativeScript. And are we going to go with nativescript.config.json, or are we going to go with nativescript.config.js in the style of webpack.config.js? So this is something we'd like to figure out. And if anybody has any suggestions on what to do here, that would be great. I think the jest allows you to do configuration in both the package.json file as well as a JavaScript file. So maybe that's the way to go. I don't know.
There's a discussions channel in the NativeScript Slack too, where this can be further discussed. Definitely some pros and cons probably to either approach, and it could probably easily go either way. So the only big pro with config.js is much like Webpack, you can kind of have custom callbacks there. So it could provide a little bit more flexibility with some custom overrides that you may want to do with the CLI and other things. So definitely an interesting topic to kind of discuss out, and feel free to share your thoughts in that discussions channel there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And of course, since there's going to be a separate nativescript.config.whatever file, a configuration file for that, there's going to be no more special section in package.json. Everything is going to be in one NativeScript configuration, and that goes for the runtimes. So let's see, refactored core modules. The core modules is something that's being hard at work from the team, and there's some serious cleanup going on the inside of core modules, and this is definitely warrants a version update. Nathan can speak on that as well a little bit more.
Yeah, I'll mention a quick blip on that. If anyone's ever contributed to core modules, there's been a couple pain points there, a lot of re-exporting that was going on, a lot of old kind of TypeScript practices used in there, mainly from the very beginning. Package JSONs were in every single folder for the most part. This was kind of going back to the early days of TypeScript when it didn't resolve indexes in folders naturally. And package JSONs were used to kind of name the primary file and the typing file in there. So some of that is kind of maintained over the years. And so we have a PR posted on core modules now to clean up all that. It makes all of the symbol exports more one-to-one. There's subtle issues that have come up in bug reports that are related to this in subtle ways. Different cases where the actual symbol being used was not exactly the one-to-one symbol definition for that particular thing. A lot of cases, this kind of goes back to some of the re-exports that were happening there. So it'll make the resolution in TypeScript a lot better to contribute with, and a lot of auto import formatters and IDEs also would pick up the wrong import path because of the re-exporting. So all in all, it was just something that long needed to be cleaned up and modernized with modern TypeScript. So that also updates to TypeScript 3.9, now the latest on that PR. So it's close, still doing some testing against it, make sure it's completely compliant. And I think we got 1,081 tests passing now, 15 failures, which are related to some subtle things we're cleaning up. So all in all, a good, nice cleanup change there for 7.0.
Nice, very nice. Thanks for that. Okay, moving on. Monorepo. So this is a new approach. It allows to manage several repos streamlined fashion. So we have core, types, Webpack, Angular. Right now we have all these repos under the NativeScript umbrella, but a monorepo approach would let us manage everything together. And Vue and React potentially will be there as well. We'll also have little mini videos on how to work with these things, how to contribute to them. And so that'll be helpful for the community to get started with that, as well as how to get started with contributing.
On the monorepo, there's a lot of maintenance issues around the separate repos that have also existed for years. A lot of times with Webpack changes, you want to test those against even demo apps that are set up in core modules. Not to mention just testing harnesses and core modules, you want to always use kind of latest configurations to make sure the latest configurations work across the tests. And so the monorepo is going to help to solve a lot of those issues by bringing it into a singular place to manage change sets. One of the most troubling is patch versions on transient dependencies and TypeScript versions, which a lot of time need to be in sync with other published updates. So yeah, the monorepo we're all very excited about, and I think it'll be much easier to work with at that point.
So GitHub Actions. A few folks from NStudio have been working on GitHub Actions and getting that going. And this will allow us to automate a lot of the processes that are happening right now. The new homepage. So right now there's going to be some new messages on the new homepage that's being redesigned. We'll share that coming up in a few weeks. Let's see. Angular 10 support. This is coming pretty soon. So right now, Angular 9 is supported. Angular 10 is in the works, and it's, I believe, pretty much ready to go.
Yeah, I'll give a quick update there.
Yep.
Yes, we have Angular 10 working. It's on a PR on the NativeScript Angular repo at the moment. A couple other subtle things with that we wanted to clean up. It actually is related to core modules. So the AOT build was exposing some issues in the re-export symbols too, because the AOT has gotten better in Angular 10, so the static analysis of the code would pick up problems in the way that the re-exports were done. So some of the core module re-export cleanup was something that's long been wanted to do, but was almost forced to be done when I started working with Angular 10. So we have some alphas and RCs that are published on NPM now and doing some testing against Angular 10 just to make sure it works against all of the latest. In the process, we also updated all the Webpack configs to the latest version. So some of the Webpack plugins, like Copy Webpack plugin, even the CSS to JSON loader had a bug in there related to source maps. All that's been updated and also scoped now. So at NativeScript Webpack is also published as an RC. But we'll be posting a blog post on Angular 10 details and how to update and all the versions with that, which is going to include probably some 7.0 RC versions. So most people that start switching to Angular 10 will start using some of the new 7.0 scoped packages. But we anticipate at least by next week, I think that will be out. I'm just taking a little extra care to make sure everything is good to go there before we release it.
Yep.
Will no longer need the entries in the ngcc config file?
Yeah, I'm seeing that without an ngcc, it works by default. So it looks like they have improved that. So I think there will be some simplifications. Doing some more testing against different project setups, though, to make sure that's universally the case. But it's things like that that we're mainly going through and making sure that that's fully the case.
Okay, cool.
And following that, shortly after, Angular 11 is going to be coming out, I believe, in the fall. So we're working on that. And that's going to be a rewrite.
Yeah, I'll mention on that real quick. Lastly, Angular 11, we've wanted to kind of take a fresh take on the Angular integration for several years, I'd say. It's something that's been thought about for a long time. The Angular integration, as mentioned previously, was done at a very early time in Angular's process. So there's a lot of things in there that are worth taking a fresh take on to stabilize and vastly improve, especially around the router integration. So some of that, I think, is going to start right after the Angular 10 support is published. And so we'll be busy rewriting that from scratch, and probably we'll have some alphas going with that at some point in August too. And some people who are brave and want to try it can probably try that. But the goal is to actually have the same API. So it would be a drop-in replacement, but under the hood, it would just be vastly better. So that's the goal with Angular 11.
Right. Okay. And since we're talking about frameworks here, Vue 3 is going to be officially supported, and React integration are going to be improved. We've got both of those folks here on the call. Yeah, so Vue 3, I believe, is in alpha right now, and React, as you know, has been added to the CLI, I believe, as of last CLI release. So things are moving along in those directions. Okay, let's move on here. We're almost done, folks. I know there's been a lot of information here for August, but we're almost done. So this is about snapshots. I believe it was Ken that asked this, right? So here's the recommendation going forward, and it's using code cache instead of snapshots. So right now we did fix some of the snapshots that are currently being used, but code cache is the way to go forward on that. Does that answer your question, Ken?
Yeah, I think so.
You tried turning code cache on, Ken, and that's working just fine for you.
Well, wait, how do I turn code cache on? What's the flag for that?
In the package JSON inside the actual source app folder, it is a property called code cache. So under the Android key.
No, see, I didn't do that. All I did was turn off. I just removed when in my build. My build script was adding minus snapshots. Mm-hmm. I was instructed long ago, and I just removed it.
Yeah, you can actually try adding the code cache flag. We've actually been using the code cache flag on the Android key inside of the embedded package for, well, 1.5 years now. On production apps and gotten good results with that. So that's meant to kind of take the place of snapshots and achieve pretty much the same. There's some debates on that through the community, but we'll try to have some more details on kind of the differences between snapshot and code cache. But definitely try that inside of the package JSON, the one that has the V8 flags for Android. That embedded package, that's the one you can drop the code cache camel case set to true.
Oh yeah, I got it. Okay, so it's in the same place under Android only, of course.
Under Android only, yeah. This is only for Android.
Sorry, what was the key?
It's code cache camel case, so lowercase CODE, uppercase C ACHE.
And it's a Boolean.
It's a Boolean.
Okay, cheers.
If you have issues with it being a Boolean type, you can try a string type true as well, but I think both will work.
All right. So that's code cache. Sub-template support with callback ability for Vue, Angular, React, and Core to provide easier additions for any plugins using templates. I'll be honest with you, this one is probably better explained by Nathan as well.
Yeah, actually, this is Nathaniel Anderson is adding this in, and I believe it is related to either Core or Webpack there. So for updates on that, probably see the discussions channel in NativeScript there.
Okay, so more details to come on that one. Okay, so a few recent items have been added to NativeScript in the last year or so, like bottom bar. I think it's called, bottom navigation. And this is probably best to be a plugin than to have the added weight for those folks that are not using it because it requires a separate CocoaPod to be added. So this is going to be extracted into a plugin to eliminate that extra weight for those folks that are not using it. And we're back to, go ahead, Nathan.
Well, this kind of plays into the last two items on the list there. I can't remember exactly when they added that, but when the bottom navigation went in, if people have noticed, there's always been a material components CocoaPod that's been installed by default on even just a default project app, even if your app doesn't use that. And so what we're going to do is pull that out on its own. Not every project uses that, and that'll be published under another NativeScript scope, probably UI-bottom bar is what that'll become. So if you do want to use that, you can add that, and so that CocoaPod doesn't add extra weight to a project that doesn't use it.
Yeah. So like I said, we're back to a couple more things that are going to be scoped. One of them is pretty huge, TNS platform declarations. You use this if you do any native API calls or if you do plugin development. That's going to be scoped at NativeScript/types. And finally, TNS core modules widgets, which has always been a little weird. This one is going to be at NativeScript/UI base. And like Nathan said, UI related things are going to be under NativeScript/UI. So a few things are going to be split up into that package, and UI bottom navigation is one of those.
Worth noting that at NativeScript types and at NativeScript UI base is already published on NPM under an RC. And you could use those right now if you want to. Of course, types you could. UI base is something that's a transient dependency in core modules. So most of these are going to be things that will be transparent. In most projects, you won't see them. So UI base is something that is really the baseline classes for some of the core module widgets. And there's still some possibility that could go with a different naming scheme. But for the time being, UI base makes sense because it'll be the baseline for really any UI base packages. So once we do split UI components out of core and publish those as at NativeScript UI, those would sit on top of the UI base. And so any other packages that follow that same suit that require some type of base level native classes, they could be published along the same scheme. So that's the kind of thought process there.
Okay, so now we're going to be doing some community announcements. I think, Nathan, you wanted to add something related to community announcements. I don't think we have Shiva on today. Yeah, we don't have Shiva, just you.
He's in his team stand-up, and I believe he will be joining here when they end here any minute. So when he shows up, we'll switch to him, but we can go ahead and take questions.
Let's do some Q&A right now.
Okay, you said something about Angular 11 being just having like the same API, but it's just amazingly better under the hood. Did you refer to Angular 11 or NativeScript Angular there? I think it was Nathan who said it.
The NativeScript Angular specifically, Diego. Yeah, the whole NativeScript Angular plugin integration, we're planning to rewrite from scratch for Angular 11.
Okay.
Yeah, but the plan is to have the same API. So platform NativeScript that's used to bootstrap the app, APIs like that would be the same. Modal dialog service could probably still stay around as well. Really, a lot of the things that exist in that integration now can be the same, but we want to change up kind of the way it's structured.
All right, so are we going to save this for another time, Nathan? Are we going to keep everybody in suspense here, or are we going to announce something?
Well, I was just looking here. I think Shiva is still on his stand-up. So,
well, now you have to.
he may ping in here in a minute, but yeah, he does have something exciting to show off. But if we miss him today, we'll show it on next week's. But he has created a UI charts replacement plugin that is vastly better with all of the styling flexibility that you would ever want in charts that you never got in UI charts. It'll be published under @NativeScript/UI-charts. Officially, it will be a replacement to NativeScript-UI-charts. And it's exciting. It is the wrapper for high charts on mobile, and it feels very nice on devices. I've actually played around with some of the demos that Shiva had created, and it's pretty exciting. So that'll be kind of a first replacement for one of the UI Pro Suite ones, which still is private source. And so this will be an official open source alternative to that, and quite frankly, quite a lot better.
Very nice. Really excited to see that. So maybe next week, Shiva can actually show that off, and we'll all get a chance to see what it's capable of. For now, I think we'll wrap it up here. Thank you all, folks, so much for joining in. Like I said, this will be on the YouTube channel, so if you do have any remaining questions or comments, send them over to us directly or comment in the YouTube video as well. All right, folks.
Thank you for the update. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex.
Yeah, thanks all.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.